morning. Not been online for a long time, so I'm quite rusty about this really. So I've got a piece of paper with one or two things on, because there's a couple of things I'd like to say to everybody. First of all, I hope everybody's coping as well as possible with this mess that we're in at the moment. Lord knows when we're going to get out of it, if ever. I say good morning because we all woke up, which is good, and we're all still here, which again is hopeful. Actually, what I wanted to say this morning, what I've come on to actually say, is I see the Gang of Four in Westminster are at it again. A set of vampires determined to suck every drop of joy and every ounce of pleasure out of the people in this country. I hope they're enjoying their victory for the moment. But I've got a question that I'd like to put to them, and a question for you to think about actually, and that's this. What evidence are they using to base all this lockups and this unsociable distancing, pubs closing, not that that bothers me, but all this horrible stuff that they're doing to everybody? What evidence are they actually using? When they first started with this, nobody knew whether there was a virus or not, so we all did our bit. And they were talking about the numbers of dead. So it's a long time since I've mentioned that, because the numbers of dead actually just dropped hugely. There's a website you can go on to, which actually it's updated at midnight every night, and it actually gives you the numbers of cases, so-called cases, I'll go to that another day, and the numbers of dead. And I looked at this on the 13th of September, and there were under 1 million people in the world had died. Well, we've got 7.8 billion people on this planet. So I did the maths. I divided 1 million by the 7.8 billion, moved the decimal point 2 places to the right to get the percentage of people who died according to official figures of this COVID thing. And it worked out at 0.01185 and 3 other numbers. Well, anybody who understands maths, when you want to round it down, what you do is you go down them from the right hand side. So you get down to the 5, and that would make the 8 into a 9. But then a 9 would make a 1 into a 2, but then you've still got 0.012, and that 2 doesn't have any effect on the 1. So basically, in the entire world, there's a percentage of dead people is 0.01% of the population. Now, that means that 99.99% of us are still here, healthy, nothing wrong with us. So that's why I think this stopped with the numbers of dead. The question I'd like to ask is, not so long ago there were 2 really big meetings in Berlin, and at one it was reported there were 1.3 million people there. Another one, it was well over 1 million. Now, I've been to Berlin, and I've been to the Brandenburg Gate, and I've been down Lindenstrasse, so I knew exactly where they were. And halfway down Lindenstrasse, which is a very wide, very long street, they'd got the platform. And when people used their phones to look up towards the Brandenburg Gate, you could see how far away that was. And it was jammed chock-a-block full of people, not distancing from each other, no mask, and they're all shoulder to shoulder. And when it panned the other way, the same number of people as well. So we know it's true because we saw this online. And that happened twice. We've had at least 35,000 people in Trafalgar Square. And in fact, I know 2 people personally who were there. And I know perfectly well that they're still healthy. They're not dead. And my question is, how many people who were there are sick or dead? The figures just do not balance out that there's a killer out there, conveniently silent and invisible, waiting to pounce on everybody and kill them. So what evidence are the Gang of Four actually using? I want you to have a good think about that, because I know there's a lot of people out there a lot of my friends who are terrified of this killer. And you shouldn't be. But we're frightened of something else instead. There's something called the Freedom of Information Act as well. And it's a little while ago someone actually managed to get out of the chap who's in charge of the Metropolitan Police the answer to 2 questions. And the questions were, how many of your officers who were present, well, any of your officers, because a lot of them were present in Hyde Park, etc., and in London at these Black Lives Matter demonstrations where there's lots of violence, etc. How many of your officers have been ill, and how many of your officers are dead? And the answer came back, none. So why I'm here today is to ask you, please start to think about what's happening and why, and start asking questions of your own. Okay, I've done my bit for today.